Hello, God bless you. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're here to welcome you, give you peace, give you love, give you joy, give you acceptance, give you everything that we believe that Jesus gives to us, everything that Jesus continues to offer us, something that he did from the very beginning. And even in the midst of things that seem to be wrong, even in life, in the world, and anything like that, we can always see it as the precondition for the seeds that will manifest a new life, a new message, a new way of thinking for every single one of you. And that's what we're believing. We're believing that even in the midst of difficulty, in the midst of trying to figure out things, because I think we have a tendency to try to figure out things. And I know that I do. I try to figure it out. And then usually to my dismay, but never to my surprise, I can't figure it out. I don't have the interpretation. I don't have the word from the Lord that's this magical thing that's just going to get me through or help me to understand what I'm dealing with or what I'm going through. But what I do have is something that is not mysterious, but still works mysteriously within me, and it's the love of my Father, that I feel his love embrace me. And that's what I want for you, for everybody that's listening, for everybody that's joining us live right now, and for everybody that will watch this later on our YouTube channel. We want you to feel the love of God in your heart the way that we are feeling it today. So whether you are here with us physically or whether you watch online as much as you do, we appreciate it. And we want to tell you that we appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate everybody that's a part of our community, whether it's an online community or a community in person. You are a part of our family, and you're a part of the family of Jesus Christ. And here we are, all enjoying the wedding feast together. And that gives me hope, and that gives me joy. We have a couple things I think that we probably remember in prayer. A gentleman that we've helped here at the church through different donations and things like that they've done. It was a brother named Butch Walters, and he's dealing with a lot. He had a lung transplant, which was at the time it was a very successful lung transplant. There was money that was donated to that, not just from this church and from people that were watching, but many churches throughout the county that joined in together to help this gentleman. He has a successful lung transplant, and then he started having an issue where I think he leaned over and maybe stretched far, and now there's beginning to have the new lungs that he's got are beginning to fill up with fluid. So we're going to pray for him and believe that God gets him through this, that the doctors are guided, and that the Lord will help bring a solution to his body, because the Lord has brought him so far right now, and just believing that God will continue to take him the rest of the way. And if there's anything that you would like us to pray about, send us a message, leave us a comment, anything that you would like. If you don't want it out there in the public sphere, you can just send us a private message, and it will stay here with us, and we will pray about whatever it is that you want us to pray about. And if there's something that we can contact you and help you with any way, we'd love to do that. We'd love to connect with you. So just let us know how we can pray for you, even if it is just the sake of just joining with you and believing for whatever, hope, love, joy, any of the beautiful fruit of the Spirit that Paul wrote about in Galatians. So, Father, we know that you've met us here because you live within us. You reside within our heart by faith. Christ in you is the hope of glory. It's what the Scripture says. And we believe that. We believe that the Christ is the hope of the world. And that hope lives within each one of us. And we're believing on behalf of our brother, Butch Walters, who was another person in whom the Christ dwells. We believe, Father, that you will guide the hands of surgeons and doctors who are educated, and that they will see whatever the dilemma is, whatever the problem or the situation is, and it will raise him back up to life, resurrect his body, and heal him, Lord. We believe it. And for everyone that is either mentioning or not mentioning a prayer request to us here, Lord, we pray for our people We pray for the folks that join us here at New Testament Church, and we pray for everyone that joins us online. We pray for every single one of our viewers, anybody that shares and likes, subscribes, and anybody that doesn't, Lord. We send the word of the Lord out to the world and believe that your word is so powerful that it can move beyond a live stream. It can move beyond anything that is out there and touch a life. Thank you for this hope, this faith, and this love. In Jesus' name, amen. So, AJ, this past Sunday, preached another masterpiece of a sermon. I do not use that term lightly or frivolously. It was an absolute masterpiece of a sermon. And there are things that I just continued to just roll over within my heart the rest of that day and the rest of this week even. Thinking about it this is Wednesday. I've thought about it every single day because of the fact that the way that the brothers bowed. And I don't want to skip past this too quickly because I want to make sure that you hear this from a certain perspective and that we're able to share this in a hopeful way. But what you have initially, the brothers come to Joseph and they bow down because they need food. They're in famine. They're in desperation. And the only way that they are going to survive as a people is that if Joseph in the storehouse that he's created in Egypt is able to give them something to eat. So they bow down because they are hungry. Skipping ahead, not to go through everything that AJ went through on Sunday. That way it was a lot. I don't have time to do all that. But skipping ahead to where, you get through the story of, Joseph hides his cup, has the servant hide his cup in Benjamin's backpack, and they go off, and you get to the point where it is Judah pleading on behalf of the brothers, and that's where they bow down again to Joseph. They bow down to Joseph, not to ask for food, not to save their own butt, because Judah has already made a solid statement. As soon as Joseph's servants track them down out in the road to where they're going home, they stop them, and Judah, being the big bad man, probably that he is, we find out later about something that Michael's going to read that Jacob says about him. But Judah, being the big bad man, stands up and says, you know what, I'll tell you what, I'm so confident that we don't have your stupid cup. You can look through every one of our backpacks, and I guarantee that you won't find it. And if you do find it, you can kill the guy that you find it in, and we'll all be your slaves. How about that? So Judah, speaking so confidently of his innocence, that's one thing that got me about that story, is that he speaks so confidently about his and his brother's innocence that he says, if we are guilty, which we're not, then you can put them to death and we'll all be your slaves. Then when they find the cup, you could see, oh my God, it's Benjamin's backpack. The little boy, our little brother, the little one, the precious one, the one that's really dear to our Father. He's the one that now is on the chopping block. We'll all be slaves. That is what it is. But our baby brother, the one who is the precious one in the eyes of the Father, now you're telling me that he has to die because of what I said.
Out of my arrogance.
Out of my arrogance and out of a law that I created. Now he has to die. So they go to Joseph and they bow down to save the life of Benjamin. Judah says, I will be your slave for the rest of my life, working without pay, doing the most menial job. Whatever it is that you want me to do, I will do it for the rest of my life. Just let my little brother go. Who in your life can you plead on their behalf? Who are the little ones in your life, the ones who cannot do it on their own, and even the ones that you may have impugned by your own words? The ones that you have set up as to say that they're guilty, or something that has caused their guilt, or something that has caused their shame, or their possible meaning to die in certain situation, the way that Judah opened his mouth and then opened Benjamin up to death. Who is it that you need to bow down on their behalf, not for your own, not to save your butt, but to save the life of somebody else. Who is it that you can plead for? Who are the least of these, is what Jesus said. He said, when you've done it to the least of these, you've done it unto me. And the thing is that I skip over it every time, and I don't mean to do it. But when Jesus uses that term, he says, when you've done it to the least of these, thy brethren. Hallelujah. When you've done it to the least of these, thy brethren. As if to say, Jesus making it clear, not really implying, but making it poignantly clear that those that are naked, those that are imprisoned, those that are hungry, those that are thirsty, those that cannot do for themselves, they are your brothers. And then if you take this back to what AJ began to talk about Sunday, am I my brother's keeper? What Cain says after he slays his brother in jealousy and in anger, even though he was, I think that it's foreshadowing with Cain. That Cain is able to cut off the fruit from the tree, and immediately as soon as he cuts the fruit from the tree, AJ pointed out, it dies. It begins to die. It begins to rot. And you take that and you connect it to Jesus saying that I'm the vine and you're the branches. You're not cut off from me. You're grafted into this true vine. You're not separated from me in any way. And then Cain cuts off the fruit, and it begins to disintegrate. It begins to die. It begins to rot. But here's Abel that leads his sacrifice to the altar, something that's alive, something that's living. And you take that idea of somebody that is so easily able to cut off something, and then so much so that he does it to his brother, cuts off his life, doesn't see that it is more valuable than his. But when you're able to look at somebody else who's suffering and dealing with the troubles of this life that we all deal with, and do it to the least of these and call them your brother, call them a part of you, then you've done it to Jesus himself. So that's for one, the second bowing that that hit me the most on Sunday. Is who can you bow down for on their behalf to the least of these? But one that caught me again was in the end of the story. Jacob dies, and they go to bury their dad. And his brothers, after he dies, and it's very reminiscent, like AJ said, it's very reminiscent to what Esau and Jacob had dealt with. Because Esau makes the declaration, as soon as dad's dead, as soon as dad's gone, I'm going to kill you. And he promises it, vows it. And what does God do? But keep Isaac alive so that Esau can't fulfill his own vow. Esau cannot fulfill the promise that he's made to slay Jacob in his anger and in his wrath. That he won't do it, that God keeps crusty old Isaac alive, blind as a bat, can't do anything for himself, and can't tell the difference between a bunch of goat hair on somebody's arm or hair growing out of a guy's arm, whatever it is, can't tell the difference between his two sons. God keeps the old blind guy alive so that Esau cannot fulfill his vow of killing his brother. And here are the brothers of Joseph who know that they've done him wrong. They know that they could have destroyed his life, put him in the most danger and in the most harm that they could have ever put anybody in. And then Jacob dies. And they said, well, now that Dad's dead, Joseph's going to take vengeance on us. He's going to kill us. So they go to their brother, and it says they fell down before him. And says that we'll be your servants, but you need to forgive us. Joseph, you need to forgive us. Remember, Joseph, you need to forgive us. Almost as if to say, like, I make my kids when they do something to each other. I forget where I read this. It's some psychology thing or something years ago, but I don't remember the connection for it. But I just know that it said if your children do something to each other, you make them apologize, and make them apologize again. Better that time. Because you know how it always is. Like they'll fight, they'll do whatever, and then say, all right, tell AJ you're sorry. Sorry. No. You go to AJ, you tell him you're sorry. Like, I'm sorry. And it doesn't make it any more sincere. It's not any more sincere, but it's the fact that you made them apologize, that you had to face them and say, I did something that harmed you. I did something that I should not have done to you, and my dad is making me make it right in some way. So I make them apologize, and then you could hear almost the flip side of that. It was like, well, you got to forgive me. Dad's making me do it. So, but this time you've got the brothers who are doing it, and now, just the way they did in the beginning, they're trying to save their life. They think Joseph is out to get them. I think Joseph is going to take revenge on them. So they're letting them know that our father said something about you, and because of God and the Father and the God of our father, you've got to forgive us. Let me read through this real quick. I'll try to make this really brief because I'm almost finished. But something that Jacob says before he dies about Joseph, in Genesis 49:22, he says, Joseph is a fruitful bough or bow, a fruitful bow by a spring, and his branches run over the wall. The archers fiercely attacked him. They shot at him and pressed him hard. Yet his bow remained taut, and his arms were made agile by the hands of the mighty one of Jacob, by the name of the shepherd, the rock of Israel. By the God of our father, who will help you, by the Almighty, who will bless you with blessings of heaven above, blessings of the deep that lies beneath, blessings of the breast and of the womb. The blessings of your father are stronger than the blessings of the eternal mountains, the bounties of the everlasting hills. May they be on the head of Joseph, on the brow of him who was set apart from his brothers. And that's where Jacob ends it. That's the last thing. Then he moves on to Benjamin to say something about him. So Joseph is faced with his brothers later on in the next chapter after he dies, or I think it's later on in this chapter. No, it's Jacob dies, and then in chapter 50 is when his brothers approach him and say, well, you have to forgive us. But here's Joseph, who by his own father's recognition, the archers fiercely attacked him. They shot at him. They pressed him hard, yet his bow remained taut, and his arms were made agile by the hands of the mighty one of Jacob, by the name of the shepherd, the rock of Israel. All of this, to me, it brings back the last few brother stories. It brings back, with the archer, it brings back Isaac and Ishmael to me. And I think that's what Jacob is referencing, that my father dealt with this, that I dealt with this, that Joseph, you've dealt with this, and you've handled it far better than my father or I have handled it. You have handled it in a much better way than anybody of our generations, and that's why he was able to say that Joseph is a fruitful bough or bow, and a fruitful bow that its branches run over the wall. And every time somebody tried to build a delineation, every time that something tried to build either a wall to protect you from the harm of everybody else or tried to build a wall to keep you out, somehow your branch and your vine began to grow over the wall, and you could still find forgiveness for your brothers, even in the middle of all of their deceit and their wickedness and their harm that they did to you. You still have a branch and a vine that's able to grow over the wall. You find a way through. You find a way over or under or above or over to the left or right. You find a way to reach people. And he did that in every instance of his life. Whether he was in jail or a slave or wherever, he was still able to see the countenance of another man that had fallen and treat him like a brother and interpret his dream. But you have these brothers that are reminding him, you got to forgive us. You got to forgive us. Something that Richard Rohr says, we have a tremendous capacity for missing the point. A tremendous capacity for missing the point. And I think that we miss the point sometimes in this story, and I think Joseph's brothers missed the point in the story. And they're living. Joseph lets them know that it's not up to me to forgive you right now because I've already forgiven you. I don't want you to be my servants. Stop bowing down to me to try and make recompense for your sin or the thing that you have done against me. Rise up and be my brother. Live life alongside with me. Quit trying to do things in asceticism or try to do things that are a harm to your flesh, as if crucifying your flesh in that way is going to give you any special grace or any special place within the family of God or within my family. Get up off the ground, stop trying to be my servant, and begin to be my brother. And when I thought about that today, I thought about in Matthew chapter 9, when the disciples of John the Baptist come to Jesus and they said, why do we and the Pharisees fast, but you and your disciples, you don't ever fast? Jesus makes it about something, not about anything else. He makes it about a bridegroom. Jesus continually in the Gospels brings it back. There's only one time, it's in Matthew 25 or 24, where Jesus makes it out like there's a courtroom. It's only one time, but almost every other place, Jesus references it as a bridegroom. He references as a party. The first miracle that he does is in Cana of Galilee for a wedding feast. And he points out to these guys asking the question, why do we always fast, but you guys never fast? Jesus becomes Isaiah in that moment and says, they have the bridegroom. Why would they fast while they have the bridegroom? He said, now if the bridegroom were to remove himself from them, then they would have to fast. So what is it in the wedding feast? What is it about our life that what would make the bridegroom move away from the bride? What in the world would make the bridegroom say, I don't want to have anything to do with the wife or anything to do with the bride in any way? It would have to be something that was so bizarre and so off the wall and so out there that would make the bridegroom want to be separated from the bride in any way. And that is exactly what Isaiah said in Isaiah 58. Isaiah 58, he starts, and it's probably one of the things that Isaiah was just one of those guys, and he ends up getting killed for it. But he was one of those prophets that did not give a crap, and he's just going to tell you like it is. And he says this about the religious crowd. He said, you fast, and you afflict your flesh over and over and over again. He said, but the fasting that God is calling you to is not a fast where you afflict the flesh, but a fast where you afflict the soul, something that's going to change the way that you act, not something that's going to piously offer this asceticism to God as if this is going to be the thing that gives me forgiveness or special place with God. No. God's not interested in any of that. And that's what Jesus was trying to get them to understand. He was bringing back in their mind the prophecy of Isaiah 58 that says that we're not going to fast to afflict the soul or to afflict the flesh. We're not going to have our capacity to miss the point drastically. We're going to catch what he's saying. You have the bridegroom. You're married to the bride. You're married to the groom. You're married to the one that has saved your life. And there's nothing that you're going to do that's going to separate him from you. It's got to be so drastic. It's got to be so much. It's got to be so bad for him to divorce himself from you. And here's Jesus saying, even in the wedding feast that he talks about, he says, people don't show up. What does he say? He said, go out in the highways and the byways, the hedges, get everybody. Get people that nobody wants to be at the party. Get all the people that are part of the race that you don't like. Get people that are part of the political party that you don't like. Get people that you do not get along with. Bring them all to the party, and guess what we're all going to do? We're going to have a feast. That's what the Bible talks about when it uses the word agape for love. It's a feast of charity. It's a love feast. And here's Joseph's brothers begging for forgiveness. And he's like, get up. I just want to be your brother. I just want to be your brother. And if we can do that with everybody in our life, I don't want to harm you. I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to hold anything against you. I just want to be your brother. I think that's what changes the world. That changes people's lives because they know somebody wants to be connected to me. Somebody wants to be my brother. For one, it was Jesus. For two, it's the rest of us.
Oh, wow. There's so many unbelievable things there. But I'll jump in here with Joseph being the fruitful bow. For him being the vine that climbs over the branch, over the walls. All right. So I think it's very fitting that it goes back to Cain and Abel here. because Cain takes the fruit off the vine. And when he takes the fruit off the vine, it's dead. All right. So follow me here. This is happening. This is like synapses fire here. So if Joseph is pointing to a better way to handle the vine, Joseph's pointing to a better way to handle this vine image, because Cain doesn't know how to bring the vine as a sacrifice because he didn't realize he's part of the vine. He's not part, in his mind, he's taking the vine and making it work for manhood, for anthropos. But then you have Joseph, who's a foreshadowing, probably the best foreshadowing of Jesus, pointing to the true vine. So John 15, Jesus says in verse 5, I am the vine, ye are the branches. He that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit, which is what Cain couldn't do. For without me you can do nothing. If a man abide not in me, he is cast forth as a branch, and is withered. And men gather them, and cast them into the fire, and they are burned. If you abide in me, and my words abide in you, you shall ask what you will, and it shall be done unto you. Herein is my Father glorified. Herein is my Father glorified, that you bear much fruit. So shall you be my disciples. And then how do you do that? As the Father hath loved me, so have I loved you. Continue in my love. Continue ye in my love. So Joseph is the fruitful vine, pointing to the true vine, which is Christ. And then you talked about the wedding feast. Well, what made the wedding feast so interesting? It's because it's the fullness of what comes from the vine. That's what makes the wedding feast so appealing. That's what makes Jesus' miracle so amazing. It's the wine. It's the wine. I mean, they wanted the wine. They were out of wine, and Jesus' first miracle is to produce the wine. And you see this, and what man does is man tries to handle all of this in, like Genesis says, the process of time. In the process of time is why Cain was so offended. So you have Abel offering the living sacrifice. Okay. And then Jesus is giving us this in John 15, which is how to stay a living sacrifice. Okay? So it's appointed unto anthropos once to die. It's appointed unto man once to die, and that's Hebrews 9:27. It's appointed unto man once to die, and then the decision, the judgment, which is the decision. So, if anthropos is going to be sacrificed on the altar here, there's a decision to make. And the decision is, are you going to continue to be locked in the past? Because that's why his brothers keep bowing. They stay locked in the past. They're locked in the past of anthropos, and that's what manhood does. That's why you hold the offense. That's why God tells Cain, there's an offense crouching at your door, and it wants to dominate. It wants to dominate you, but you could be accepted. You could be accepted, but there's an offense lying at your door. How could he have been accepted if he would have went to his brother and learned from him? Because the younger had the answer, just like Benjamin had the cup. The younger has the cup, which is significant here with the wine again. Benjamin had the sacrifice, and then Jesus says it in the garden, I have to drink this cup. This is the cup I have to drink. So, the offense always robs you of the present. The offense always robs you of the present. When you're offended, you're immediately robbed from where you're at. Because you can't be offended and stay present. You can't. You can't. If the brothers weren't present, that's why they kept bowing. Joseph is saying, you've already seen the fullness of my love. You've seen that you're my brother. Get up. Get up. Get up. But you have to deal with this whole thing of the present. It's the meek that inherit the earth. Matthew 5:5. The meek shall inherit the earth. And this is how we inherit. You're present. If you're present, you are at this moment, right now, inheriting the earth. Because this earth becomes your inheritance when you're in the moment. But you can't be in the moment if you're stuck in the past. If you're stuck in offense, if you're stuck in hurt, if you're stuck in pain, if you're stuck in fear, if you're stuck in the worry, you are robbed of the present. Go ahead.
If we're talking about an inheritance, we're not talking about an inheritance that you're going to enjoy somewhere down the road. We're talking about an inheritance that you get to enjoy right now. It's the same. It's the same story for us as it was for the prodigal son. When the prodigal son came back, he asked for the inheritance, right? He asked his father for the inheritance and thought that he had squandered it. Oh my gosh. But then when he came back and he was present with the father, and the father didn't let him live in the past. He wouldn't allow him to stay in the past. No. Stop talking about that. Come into the house and enjoy the inheritance right now. We're having a party. We're having a feast. I'm going to clothe you in my garments and put my ring on you, give you my authority, give you my love. That's it.
Oh, it's so good.
That's it.
It's so good. It's so good. I'm so excited, and I just can't hide it. I'm about to lose control, and I think I like it. So you have this continual picture of, and the word for accepted. So when he tells Cain, if you want to be accepted, if you want to make this right, if you want to be accepted, that means amend. If you want to amend, you're going to have to bow. You're going to have to bow. So if you want to amend things, if you want to make things right, let me phrase this a better way. If you want to be present right now with your family, with your kids, with your friends, with your job, with your church, with everything you got going on, if everything seems like it's just happening and it's out of control and you can't catch up to the way life is flowing, you have to make it right by bowing. And the bowing is not something of power. The bowing is to save the least of these, which is why they did it for Benjamin. And it's why Joseph tells him to get up, because you've already saved him. He's already saved. He's already there. So here's another important part that I want to hit on Cain. So his name meant spear, to strike fast. I can't remember the other one, but spear to strike fast. That's Cain's name. And everything, you can take the whole Bible literally back to this story. But I think it is so eternally significant that when Christ, the vine, is being crucified and has died, just like the fruit that Cain had pulled off, it is so significant that the final blow of Anthropos is with a spear. It's the spear that goes into the side of Christ, and blood and water flow out. And the blood and water scientifically or physically represent a rupture of heart. If blood and water pour out, it means that his heart would have ruptured. So the last spear, the last draw of manhood, Jesus transverses time and becomes Abel in that moment. Because Cain's spear, his name means spear, his blow to his brother, Jesus takes it on and he becomes Abel's voice crying from the grave. Because the voice cries from the curse. The voice cries from the curse. God said to Cain what? Your brother's voice is crying from the ground. His blood is crying from the curse. So Jesus becomes the death of the curse. And the last spear, the last offer, the last straw for mankind is to make sure that dead is dead. And it reveals that death is not dead.
Because when you read it, I forget, what is it, Matthew 24, where he says that. He came to redeem, where Jesus says, I came to redeem the righteous blood from Abel to Zechariah. And Zechariah was the one that was murdered on the steps of the temple. And I've always heard Pastor Kevin say this multiple times. He's preached it so beautifully, both stories, from Abel to and Zechariah, the murder on the steps of the temple. And it says their blood cries out for vengeance. Their blood is crying out for somebody.
And that's what Joseph says. That's why Joseph says it. Am I in the place of God? We're afraid you're still going to kill us. Am I in the place of God? Vengeance belongs to the Lord. So since vengeance belongs to the Lord, and that means that all your enemies are going to get what they got coming, you know what the Lord did with vengeance? He took the last spear that Cain had, and he died in the curse. And the voice of the blood of Abel can't cry anymore, because it's a new voice crying from the earth. Because John 12 says, oh man, this is just perfect. This is perfect. John 12, verse 32. And Oh, man. 31. Now is the judgment of this world. Now shall the prince of this world be cast out. This is going to just eviscerate your brains. You know what the prince of this earth means? The prince of the world? Prince is archon, which means first in rank or power. So when the anthropos, who was the first, because Cain was a man, she said, God has given me a man. So when he says, he says, now is the judgment of the world, now shall the prince of the world be cast out. And if I be lifted up, where? From the earth, now shall draw all men unto me. This he said, signifying what death he should die. The people answered him, we have heard out of the law that Christ abideth forever. And you even said it in John 15. You even said that, and have John yet, but they heard his words. And how sayest thou, the Son of Man must be lifted up? Who is the Son of Man? Then Jesus said unto them, yet a little while is the light with you. Walk while you have the light, lest darkness come upon you. For he that walketh in darkness knoweth not whither he goeth. While you have light, believe in the light, that you may be the children of light. I mean, I don't know how else we can slice this. I don't know how much further we can take this, because dominion here is offered to, very specifically, to Cain and Esau. Dominion is offered to Cain when he says, the offense lies at the door, or you can have dominion. But the dominion is going to come when you amend. All right? Then the same thing is said of Esau by Jacob. The same thing is said to Esau by Isaac when he is ready to absolutely kill Jacob. And this is how we get the story right, because the first brothers were Cain and Abel. Now you have the dilemma of Esau and Jacob, or Esau and Isaac. Yeah, Esau and Jacob, sorry. And Isaac says to Esau, you are going to be ruled by your brother. And that means that he was going to be a prisoner of Jacob's, because you're a prisoner when you're outside of the present. When you're outside of the present, you're in chains. You are in prison. You are enslaved to the offense. You are enslaved to the broken heart. But he tells him, you will throw his yoke off your neck and have dominion when you get over the offense, when you bury the hatchet, when you make it right. So it is eternally significant. If there is someone or something that is on your heart, in your mind, whether you've been hurt or you did the hurting, it's not up to the other person to do it. If you are a disciple of Christ, if you are a son of God, the beckoning in your heart, the Spirit is going to move you to go amend and make it right. And then when you do, then there's dominion. Then you inherit the earth. How do you inherit the earth? You're present. You're present. And how are you present? If you abide in me and my words abide in you. This is life. This is life everlasting. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, there's a concept in psychology that's, I would say, relatively new in general, or in the grand scheme of things, but I think both of you guys have looked into internal family systems some. Yeah. So internal family systems, Dr. Schwartz, he's come up with this whole idea, and essentially he was actually a marriage and family therapist, and what he realized was that the same dynamics that were within the family were actually going on within a single person, within the individual, with the different parts of themselves. And so they learned, or he learned rather, and developed a system around, or a theory around, the internal family, or the internal parts of yourself, and that each one of those parts you could negotiate with. Each one of those parts you could learn from. Each one of those parts you could figure out where in the world they were coming from, and why this part of you was reacting or acting the way that it was when certain circumstances or situations came up. So you think about it as like a trigger. If you had something happen to you in your past, maybe when you were a kid or in a previous relationship, or whatever, it could be anything. Like, I give you a good example. Trauma from things like war, and I don't want to use that word too much, but an experience in something like war. I was talking to a guy the other week talking to him about his insurance, and it was so funny because I got an email from this person. Their name was Val, and I was like, I just thought it was a lady, and then I realized when I called, this is not a lady, this is a dude, and he and his family are from Ukraine. And so they're 23, 24 years or something like that here. And so I was like, oh, okay, this is neat. So anyways, he's telling me that they go to this Slavic church in Charlotte, and they have a lot of refugees there right now because of the war in Ukraine. And so this is back last summer. They were actually going to have a 4th of July celebration, which is a great idea, right? Just everybody loves 4th of July, hot dogs, hamburgers, swimming, sports, water sport activities, all that good stuff, and fireworks. And it was like, that was a huge mistake because they had all these little kids and these women and mostly women and children, but these people, and especially the children that were there, and they've come from a war zone. And then they're setting off fireworks. Nobody thought about it. And then it was like, boom, it hit. It was like, oh my gosh, we've made a huge mistake. And so, anyways, I don't even know why I was telling that story, but oh, it's about trauma. Thank you for bringing me back. So we were talking.
Michael, if you would just stay present.
I know, yeah. Hey, I got wrapped up in the story, man. So I got the trauma, right? So the experience in the war zone, right? It came flooding back to these kids when they hear the fireworks going off and they're freaking out. Well, we do the same thing, right? There are certain parts of us that react in a certain way because X, Y, and Z happened or whatever, because we were mistreated in this way or we weren't heard in this situation. So when you don't hear me now, then I get angry and I get frustrated and I get louder and I get mean, or I shut down completely and I walk into another room and I just won't talk to you for 3 days, whatever the case may be. But there are parts of us that are reacting in this certain way. And one of the things that Dr. Schwartz figured out is that the way not to deal with the parts, because that's generally how we learn things, right? Like how not to do something, then we figure out how to do it. But he learned how not to deal with those parts by dealing with them wrongly. His first, I'll say guinea pig, but really it was his first revelation he had within this young woman who was in a family. She was cutting herself. And what he told her was that, what she said to him was, I hear this voice that tells me to cut myself. And of course her parents are like, we don't know what's wrong with our daughter. We think she's losing her mind. And he's like, oh my gosh, oh man. Yeah, if they were Pentecostal, it would have been like 27 prayer meetings and, whatever. Oh my gosh. Anyways, so the young lady is hearing the voice. It's telling her to cut herself. He says, just tell the voice, no, I'm not going to do that. And so she tries that. It doesn't work. She actually comes back to another session, continues the cutting, and he says, okay, we're just going to have to take the bull by the horns here. You're just going to have to be very stern with this voice and just tell it no. And so she did that, and it seemed to work for a few days, and then all of a sudden, it was like she just could not withstand the voice. It got louder and louder and louder, and so she cut again. So she comes back another time, and he says, all right, you're just going to have to bare-knuckle this thing. Like, just take that voice is going off. You're just going to have to go haymaker on it and just beat the snot out of it. And so she comes back to another session. He opens the door, and she has this huge gash on her face. And he says, he said out loud, you win. He said, I told that part of her, you win. That's it. I give up. And he said, they got in the session, and he's like, can you just close your eyes? Can you just kind of, center in on this voice? Can we talk to this part of it? And so that begins this process. And she says, yes, he can, we can talk to this part. And he says, okay, Well, can you just ask that part what it wants? What does it want? What's it trying to accomplish here? And she goes in and eventually begins that part of her begins to speak, and she starts to have this conversation. And what he realized from all of that was that the only way to deal with those parts was to go to them humbly and ask simply, why are you doing what you're doing? Don't come in confrontation. Don't come in anger. Don't come in fierceness. Don't come for vengeance. Don't come in wrath, but come humbly. And all I could think when you talk about the bowing, just bow to those parts of you and say, hey, listen, we're on the same team. Hey, I want to figure out how we can make amends here. How can we resolve this situation? How can we heal this hurt? How can we restore this part of me to its original purpose and identity? Because that's the whole purpose of that internal family systems, is to find the true role of each and every one of those parts and reconcile them with that role. That part of you that is trying to defend you, that part of you that is lashing out, has a completely different role to play. And he talked to a young man one time, and he said, he was, I think he said it was, whatever it was very, very angry part of him, just lashing out, hateful, all that kind of stuff. And he said, we finally got to the point, we asked that part of him, what is it that you would do if you weren't having to protect him all of the time? And he said, I would play the piano. And it was like the creative part of him was so wrapped up in this defensive mode, in this protection mode, right, that it could not do anything else. He couldn't even live in the creative part of his being because he was so tied up with the anger, the hurt, the frustration, whatever it was, and having to protect himself in a moment. And it was in that humble, just that place of humility, going in, bowing to that part. And it's really ultimately what happens is those parts of you, actually, the defenses go down because of that humility, and the true child is revealed. Because that's the other part of the theory, is that each and every one of us have our inner child. And that is the core of who you are. That's who God created you to be. And you're linked to what Dr. Schwartz calls Father. He doesn't call it anything else. He just calls it Father. The child is linked to Father. And in order to have that perfect union going on, you've got to get all of those parts, whether it's the firefighter or the protector or whatever it may be, you've got to get all those parts working back in their original role so that you can have this symphony or this synchronicity within the child, the true child. And it's all comes in humility by going to those parts.
Soft answer that turns away wrath. And like Jesus speaking to the storm, peace. It's not it's not the Charlton Heston Moses vision of Jesus where it's, speak to the storm. And it's just peace. And it's not, what's the Lord of the Rings one? Where Gandalf's like, thou shall not pass. It's not that. It's just peace. Yeah. It's a soft answer.
And I think this is an important part of what we're talking about. The person that you may need to do the most forgiving is you. Maybe it's you. Maybe you need to go to your inner self and forget. Not maybe, definitely, you need to go to your inner self and forgive yourself for dealing with your life the way it's been done. And it's, go ahead.
Real quick, it's done in a form of prayer. That's all that is. Absolutely. When you go into that, we can talk about psychology and all that, the science of the mind and the psyche and whatever else. It ain't got nothing to do with that. Let me tell you something. These people that lived tens of thousands of years ago or whatever, and they're doing all their shamanic rituals and stuff, they got it way more right than we are today. I'm just telling you, we're trying to explain all this stuff. There's stuff that happens in the space between space, in the quantum realm, that we think that we know what's going on. It's just like our prayer tonight. We send our faith, our belief We send our love to Butch Walters, believing that somewhere, some way, somehow, subatomically, God is doing something that we cannot see, we cannot understand, we cannot comprehend. And that's where we've got to live. We've got to learn to live. And it's within that, like I said, it is a psychological theory, but this is something that's been there for millennia. This is something that's been there since the dawn of mankind. Since God was walking in the cool of the day with man, he's taught him how to sit and contemplate, how to sit and have a conversation.
So if it's this, then, if you're going back there, if it's the cool of the day,
yeah,
okay, and the garden is the representation of childlike.
Yes.
Okay, because they were fathered by God in the cool of the day.
Right.
Whether you believe it was a literal story or an archetypal story, this thing is amazing.
Yes.
So it is the thing that God does with Abel is he respects the sacrifice, which means he turns, he gazes upon it. He is contemplating.
Man.
He is meditating on Abel's sacrifice,
so good.
pointing back to when they were fathered in the garden.
Yeah, it's a sweet savor.
Right.
It's just like if you throw a piece of chicken on the barbecue. It ain't no different than that. When you throw burgers on the grill, and I mean your neighbors can smell it. Hey man, I'm coming over. What time's dinner? I swear to you, that happens all summer long. My neighbors say the same thing. But
of course,
at my house. but that's what they do. It's
Greg's the chef, food lab. Of course they do it.
Yes,
we do that. I come over. What are you cooking?
Well, Chelsea came in this morning. She said, "Oh my gosh, it smells good in here." I was like, "It does." I was throwing some stuff in the crock pot. So, but anyways, it's a sweet savor, and that's exactly what happens.
Throwing some stuff in the crock pot.
That's exactly what happens when you go into that moment. Like you said, God's looking on that. I mean, I feel the Holy Ghost all in that. God's looking on that. He's gazing on that. He's smelling that. He's getting that sweet savor.
The living lamb.
Absolutely. That the sacrifice that's taking place right there, because that's what we are doing. We are sacrificing time and energy and effort and our thoughts and all of those things is going into that moment. But that is what brings about the healing. That's what brings the restoration.
That type of sacrifice is what I'm saying when he talks about that type of fasting.
Yeah.
Not a fasting that afflicts your flesh for the sake of religious ritual, beating yourself up, or like I keep use the word asceticism, but it's not for that sake. You want to do the Daniel fast, go for it, whatever. But the thing that Jesus doesn't call me into that. He calls me into a type of fast that if the bridegroom has turned his back on me, if you're in a marriage and somebody in the relationship has turned their back on you, then there's something that you've got to do to try and turn back what's going on. As I looked it up a second, it was Proverbs 15:1, a soft answer turneth away wrath. The word literally means to turn back. So it's used as return. It's used as like turning back time. So if you want to go back to a time, you got to go back to your brother, go back to your sister, go back to the one that either you've caused harm or have caused harm to you, and turn back time itself. That's the sacrifice. That's getting off your tail of, or whatever Kelly Barnes said, get off your blessed assurance and go to somebody and say, will you forgive me? Will you forgive me? That's a sacrifice in itself. That's humility. That's bowing down to somebody, because any other way, you can't fast your way out of that. You can't afflict your flesh enough out of that. You can't be holy or whatever it is by action. You can't do it that way. You can keep trying all that stuff, but it's not going to take you back in time. And even that phrase in the Bible, when the disciples could not cast out the demon out of the boy, or however you want to interpret that. And then that phrase right there, where it says that Jesus said, it's in every King James Bible, but it says in that verse, it says, well, this kind cometh out, only this kind cometh out by prayer and fasting. But it was added, what, 400 years ago, or added during the 1611 translation. It is not a part of the original context. But in the Bible, It's worded as bold words. It's not in italics. You would never, ever in a million years, as average Joe reader of the Bible, you would never know that that verse is not even in the Bible. It's not in the original context. It's not in the original text ever. So you've got one in Matthew 9 where Jesus, when they're asking him about fasting, and he says, they're not going to fast. I'm not going to fast. The bridegroom's here, y'all. We're at the party. We're not here to fast. We're here to have a good time. And then, well, these only come out by prayer and fasting because you've got a certain thing that you, or what's the word? A certain narrative that you've got to push now. You got a bias that you have to push. So now you have to add that in there so that people will know that, well, sometimes you got to do pray. Sometimes you do have to fast. Sometimes you do have to afflict your flesh. And when you afflict your flesh, we have a bunch of returning customers to the church. But Jesus wasn't interested in returning customers to a church. He was interested in people loving one another. He was interested in being the brother to a brother. He was interested in bringing people together in love under him.
Absolutely. Going to others in peace.
Before we get too far away from the Genesis narrative here, we're not going to go away from the Genesis narrative, but we're going to get to a second blessing part here shortly. But I wanted to add one more. I wanted to go back and read Genesis 27, where Esau is telling, or where Jacob is telling, where Isaac is telling Esau what is about to happen because he's ready to kill Jacob after he's taken the birthright. So Esau hated Jacob. Okay, verse 40. This is what Isaac says. Genesis 27:40. And by thy sword shalt thou live, away from the fatness of the earth, and shalt serve thy brother. And I've said a while ago that means enslaved or bondage, okay? So he's serving Jacob here. He's enslaved to Jacob here. And it shall come to pass when thou shalt have the dominion, that you shall break his yoke from off your neck. So then I talked about Matthew 5:5, but I did not talk about what Josh has always said. Matthew 5:5 means when you are meek, it means to keep your sword sheathed. And he's telling Esau, you're going to live by your sword. But as soon as you realize that you've got that sword and you can yield it, as soon as you realize that that's not for Jacob, as soon as you realize that sword's not for Jacob and put it up, then you'll throw his yoke off your neck. You'll throw his yoke off your neck, and then you will bow to him. And it'll be this, he's coming to Esau, and he's terrified, and he's bowing, and Esau's looking at this crippled man, and he's saying, I see my little brother now. Get up, man. Let me go with you. And Jacob, still locked in the past, still not present, still not seeing. And you talked about this kind cometh out only by prayer and fasting, being added by the translators. What would happen if we were present with those in need of healing? Not that we were looking at what this healing might do for me. What if we weren't looking at what this healing might do for them? But in this moment, what if we felt their pain? What if we felt their suffering? What if we felt their hurt? What if we felt the infirmity that was plaguing them? You're only going to feel that when you realize this sword's not going to do me any good. This sword is not going to do me any good. Even if I take it to myself, it's not going to do me any good. And that's what you're talking about with that internal family system. And that's what prayer and fasting has been done. Just fight, man. Just do it. Just strong arm this thing. And Jesus is giving us a gospel that is the total antithesis of manhood, adulthood. This is the childlike, and the childlike is present. The child sees the pepper grinder. The child sees what we don't see. They lay hold of the present. And we miss these days go by. That's why we say, man, when I hit a certain age, my life just started to go by so fast. And you remember when you were a kid? Man, it seemed like a day lasted forever. It's because you were present. You were inhabiting the day. You were taking hold of the day. But that's only going to come if we have the courage to bow down to our brothers.
And even Jesus exemplifies that over and over, that suffering with humanity. I mean, he cries at Lazarus' death. You know, he mourns at Lazarus' death. He mourns with those that are afflicted. He stoops down to those that it's just like the woman that's caught in the act of adultery. What does he do? He stoops down. He's down with her. She's on the ground, he's on the ground. Whatever that is, but he's showing that empathy.
But the Son of Man is lifted up.
Yes.
The child of man.
Yep.
The child of man is
Raised
lifted
up
out of the curse, lifted up out of this fight, lifted up out of this struggle. So I want Brent to bring us home with this second blessing, and we're going to tie it in to where it was Abraham. Go all the way back to Abraham. Let's go to the firstborn not being blessed. So let's start with Abraham.
You could start with
Go do it.
You could start technically with Cain and Abel, because God accepts the younger sacrifice over the older. You could start with that, and then you go to Abraham, who has his firstborn son is Ishmael, but it's not Ishmael that receives the firstborn blessing. It's Isaac. Because then, well, you get your own technicality with that one, because there's the son that was born of the wife. That's what Paul said. And you got to read it in Galatians to get the real thing. Like, no, let's just read through Genesis, and let's just read it all as one story. So you read that story together, then it's Isaac that gets the firstborn blessing. But then you go to Isaac, who gets to his sons. And even though it's through deceit, and it's initially through deception, I think
I'm not so sure though.
I was about to say,
I'm not so
I
sure.
think even in his blindness, it's very difficult not to see, not to understand the difference between your son. He knows it, and he points it out. He points it out that you don't sound like my son Esau, but I'm gonna bless you anyway. And so he puts his hands on him multiple times to bless him. Puts his hands on him and then grabs him on the thigh to bless him. It's the process of how they do it. So the younger son is blessed over the greater, over the older. And then you get to, so let's see, so that was Jacob getting blessed. Jacob, it's not any of his firstborn children. It's not, and you've got some stuff to say about that, I understand. So Jacob's not blessing his firstborn children the way he does. He's got his favorite child that's born of Rachel, which is Joseph. And then it's sort of Joseph that gets the blessing, but really it's the way younger one. The very last child that he has is his real favorite child, which is Benjamin, who is, if you're going to say you're going to bless him, he says that Benjamin, his name is the son of the left hand. So, which is, again, even more so important when, who is it that Joseph brings his sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, to Jacob to bless them, to make them part of the 12 tribes, because Joseph doesn't have his own tribe. So he's going to make Ephraim and Manasseh a part of the tribes of Israel, a part of the tribes of Jacob, brings them to him and puts them in the correct arms. And here comes Jacob, who it says that he's old, he's blind, can't see, he's about to die, so very much like his own father. But even in his blindness, he can see clearly, the same way that his father, in his blindness, could see clearly. Now, this is not Esau. This is definitely Jacob. But there's something about what's happening here. Because if you back that story up, just hit the rewind button on that story just a little bit, and you get to Rebekah, who heard from the Lord. Happy International Women's Day, by the way. It's Happy International Women's Day, because Rebekah heard from the Lord, and for whatever reason, she didn't have the confidence to be able to tell Isaac and be able to have the voice to be able to convince him that I've heard God. This is not a theory. This is not just an idea. This is not because I picked my favorite kid in the womb. God spoke to me and said that the lesser will be blessed over the greater, and he'll be over many nations. Many nations will come out of him. So she hears the voice of God, and she joins in with what God is saying. So even when she does, she joins into the deceit to help Isaac bless Jacob. Even then, she knows that there's something that's prophetic out of it. But even Isaac, in his blindness and his old age, I think there's still something that is distinctly known, that he sees something is happening. And then Jacob, in his own blindness, when his favorite son brings his grandchildren to him to bless him, to make them part of the tribes, he crosses his hands. And when Joseph tries to correct his hands, he says, no, Dad, no. I've already got them in the right spot. I've already got the right hands. He does the same thing. He puts the left hand over the other son, puts the right hand over the other son, and crosses his hands and gives the youngest son the firstborn blessing. You take that through to Jesus, who the Bible says that in Hebrews that we're of the same womb. He's not ashamed to call us his brethren. So he's the firstborn, and we receive the blessing after he goes through all of the suffering. He deals with all of the turmoil. He deals with all of our sin. He faces everything on our behalf for us, and we're the ones that are recipients of the blessing, as if we were the firstborn children, as if we were the ones that are the first begotten of the Father.
Gives us the birthright.
Gives us that birthright.
Gives us the blessing. Everything. Everything. I mean, you can't get any better than that. That to me is probably one of the most uber believable, amazing revelations that I've heard in a long time. And we came across this months ago. And here we go. God is just divinely orchestrating to where we're finishing this right here. Or not finishing it, picking up on it. But for Jesus to touch all the way back to Cain and Abel, all the way to Abraham with Isaac, Ishmael, and then to Jacob and to Joseph, Jacob and Esau, and Joseph and Benjamin, and then all the way to Ephraim and Manasseh, and then you go to Christ, and then for him to say, I'll be the firstborn of many brethren. For if a seed goes into the ground and dies, it abides alone. But if we abide in him, and his words abide in us, then we're going to bring forth much fruit. And
what's interesting about that John 15 where he says about abiding in the vine, when you get down to the end of that, he tells you how to abide in the vine. He says, abide in love. Abide in love. That's how you do it.
That's how they know you're my disciples. If you love one another. What were you wanting to add about Reuben? You want to add some stuff about Reuben?
Well, all I was saying, I mean, he touched on it, but Reuben should have been the firstborn recipient.
Yeah.
He should have received the blessing from Jacob.
Yeah.
But he didn't, and neither did any of his brothers.
Right.
And in fact, he's the word Bekor is the word for firstborn in the Hebrew, and that is the theme of Genesis. And I can't remember what the there's a way. I mean, there's a certain word for that in Bereshit. That's the word for that's the name of the book, right? That portion of the story, right? In the Hebrew scriptures. It's not the book of Genesis per se, but it's those stories. But anyway, so Reuben should have received it, but because of his blunders, he didn't. And again, neither did any of the other brothers. But the whole idea of the firstborn is that they would have received three things. They would have received the inheritance, they would have received the authority, and then they would have received, what did I say the other thing was earlier? Inheritance, authority, and the priesthood. The priesthood. All right, so they would have gotten the land, the cattle, the goods, the blah, 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 all the stuff, right? They would have gotten the authority or the power over the family. So they would have been the patriarch at that point. They'd be the one ruling over the family at that point. And then the other thing they would have received is the priesthood. Now we're talking pre-Levitical, right? The father is the priest of the family. He's the priest of the home. When you get down to the Levites, then we've got a whole tribe of people, and now it's descended out of the tribe. But that is not the way that it was supposed to be from the beginning. Absolutely, it was in the family. It was in the family. And so Reuben should have received all of that, right? Well, ultimately what happens is Joseph receives the priesthood and the inheritance. So he gets the land and he gets the priesthood. But Judah gets the authority. And Judah is the one that he has the tribe, and then out of Judah is, of course, the lineage of Christ, right? But Joseph actually gets, so he doesn't get a tribe, like you said, but he gets a double portion. So as the firstborn of Rachel, okay? So he's still the firstborn, but like you said, the ultimate favorite was Benjamin. So the one who really got the blessing was Benjamin. Now, again, Joseph still got a double portion in Ephraim and Manasseh. So he got two tribes, basically, right? They're sort of recognized as one, but regardless. And then, so Joseph, Judah, that was what I was going to say. So out of Genesis 49:4, this is where this starts for us, but this is out of the Hebrew Bible. He says, Reuben, you are my firstborn. That was Jacob's very firstborn. My might and first fruit of my vigor, exceeding in rank and exceeding in honor, unstable as water. You shall excel no longer. For when you mounted your father's bed, you brought disgrace. My couch he mounted. Simeon and Levi, that's the next two oldest sons, are a pair. Their weapons are tools of lawlessness. Let not my person be included in their counsel. Let not my being be counted in their assembly. For when angry, they slay a man, and when pleased, they maim an ox. Even at their best, they're destructive. Even at their best, they're tearing people down.
The ones that went and convinced all the guys to circumcise
Yes.
themselves after
Yes.
they'd raped their
Yes.
daughter and then kill them while
Then killed every one of them.
Wow, what a
The
story.
third day when they
Yeah.
were the
What
most
a
sore.
story.
Read the Bible.
Yeah.
How do you convince a whole tribe of guys to
Well,
circumcise
first of all,
themselves?
yes, that's
They are.
there wasn't a single dude in that group that said, "There's no way
Wait a
I'm
minute.
doing that.
We got to do that. What?
I'm
No.
out.
Yeah.
I like
But
pork too much."
If he would have listened to Esau,
yeah,
if he would have listened to
You would've went
Esau,
with them.
Esau would have went with him. They would have
Absolutely.
circumvented that
Yeah.
whole ordeal.
whole thing.
No bloodshed.
Yep.
What if God's whole modus operandi is no bloodshed?
right,
What if?
right.
Hello, Abel.
Yes, yes.
Go ahead.
And this is what Jacob is crying, right? Cursed be their anger so fierce and their wrath so relentless. I will divide them in Jacob, scatter them in Israel.
To the next worthiest one.
This is
So
the next. This is the next closest one, right? This is the next oldest son.
Think about
Judah.
Judah is the one who pleaded on behalf of Benjamin
Absolutely.
and says, "I'll be the servant forever." Oh, God.
Yes,
Go ahead.
that's it. That's it. Okay, so he says, "You, O Judah, your brothers shall praise. Your hand shall be on the nape of your foes. Your father's sons shall bow low to you. Judah is a lion's whelp. On prey, my son, have you grown. He crouches, lies down like a lion, like a lioness, who dare rouse him? The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet." And that took me straight to Isaiah
Beautiful feet.
52.
Yeah.
Oh, God. The ruler's staff from between his feet, so that tribute shall come to him, and the homage of people be his. He tethers his ass to a vine, his ass's foal to a choice vine. He washes his garment in wine. God, I feel the Holy Ghost. His robe in blood of grapes. His eyes are darker than wine. His teeth are whiter than milk. Zebulun shall dwell by the seashore. I'm sorry, I'm stopping there. That's it. That's the next son. Sorry. His eyes are darker than wine. His teeth are whiter than milk. How in the world? I mean, dude, it's like, and then when you take it to Isaiah 52, the scepter shall not depart from his feet, between his feet. But you take it to Isaiah 52, he says, how beautiful are the feet. And I mean, that's a whole, listen, we could preach a whole sermon on this one verse. I would love to go through we don't have the time tonight. I'd love to go through the pictograph, the words, images. But when he says, how beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of him that bringeth good tidings.
That's it.
That publisheth peace, that bringeth good tidings of good, that publisheth salvation.
That's it.
That saith unto Zion, thy God reigneth. When he says, thy God reigneth, he's saying the King walks among the people.
Holy Ghost. Holy Ghost.
The King that walks among the people. And that is exactly who Jesus was.
Mhm.
He exemplifies what Jacob has to say about Judah. We can say whatever we want to say about Judah. We can look back at the history of Judah, and maybe it's not the greatest reputation.
But he got out of the
But
past.
it's redeemed.
Yes.
Absolutely. It's redeemed. And the
Yes.
name of Judah,
Yes.
because of Jesus Christ, is totally redeemed
Yes.
in the way that
Yes.
Christ presents himself. Because he is a king
So-
out of the tribe of Judah,
so-
but he's a king that walks
So
amongst
when
his
people picture Jesus, it's only God. They don't see the manhood. So Judah is the connection of how you get to Joseph, because when you look at Joseph, you don't see any mistakes. You see this perfect report card. But Judah is the connection of Christ, connecting the brothers of man and the God, Abba, Father. In Joseph, the picture of Jesus, Judah is what? It's the cross. It's the Lion of the tribe of Judah. But Judah is significant because he steps outside of the cage. He steps outside of the offense. He's able to move past it. He's the one that steps up, and he sacrifices himself outside of this time curse. So Josh has commented on the post here, and he wants us to hit this. And this is so good. So both Isaac and Israel are only blind in the natural sense. They were blind to the limitation and very notion of time, blind to the order of man. The vision is clear and is seen with the third eye, the eye made single in union with Abba, the eye of the landscape seeing clearly and mastering dreams.
So good.
Well, get
So
him a
good.
microphone.
So good. I know, right? We miss you,
Come
Juice.
on.
Yeah, hey,
That's good.
there's something.
And your name being Juice, man. I mean, here we are. Here we
Juicy.
are. The blood.
yeah,
The great
Wine.
the wine.
absolutely. He,
The
he
wine.
washes his garments in the
Yes.
blood of grapes.
Oh my God.
But I read something right along those lines today.
Yeah.
A gentleman said that God had, in His infinite wisdom, had blinded Jacob in the flesh, so that he could not, by his own power, by his own bias, by his own prejudice, choose his favorite son.
Blind to the notion of time.
Absolutely.
Blind to time.
Blind to it.
Judah steps out of time. Judah steps into the present. Judah steps up into the present and says, I'll die. I will die if it takes that, because Benjamin can't die. Benjamin has to be saved. And you are Benjamin. You are the least of these. We are the least of these. Christ makes the sacrifice as the Lion of the tribe of Judah for the second blessing, the birthright, the right to the kingdom, the right to inherit the earth. He dies to give you the double portion. And when that happens, you know what happens when that happens? Your feet become beautiful. Because Romans 10 quotes Isaiah 52. It says, how shall they, okay, let's back up. How then shall they call on him in whom they have not believed? And how shall they believe in him of whom they have not heard? And how shall they hear without a preacher? And how shall they preach except they be sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of them that preach the gospel of peace, not war, not the sword, and bring glad tidings of good things. And your feet are significant because they tromp and they stomp in the wine press, just like Christ did, in the sacrifice, in the outpouring of the Spirit of God. Our feet are stained with the joy of the Lord. It's the vine. It's staying in the vine. It's redeeming Cain's sacrifice. It's showing Cain how to keep the vine, how to keep the fruit in the vine. My God. And then here's the other thing with the beautiful feet. If you go to John 13, which I won't read because I read it Sunday, so back up, go find our archives, go dig into our old sermons, dig into our old messages, because all this stuff is a lot. We know. That's why you need to go back, and you need to go share, you need to go like, you need to subscribe, you need to do all those things, because there is so much packed into all of these. But Sunday I talked about John 13, where Jesus, before the cross, in his last supper with the disciples, as supper being ended, he took off his garment and he tied a towel to himself, girded himself with a towel, and put water in a basin. And here's the blood and water again. And he takes that same towel which is tied to him, and he washes their feet. So how do we have beautiful feet? Because our brothers bowed down. Our elder brother bowed first and taught us that this is the kingdom. And it's not
servant.
Yeah, and it's not by rank. It's not by rank. Yes.
He said, I'll bow down and I'll be a servant.
Yes.
And that's what he did.
How beautiful were Judah's feet.
The towel that he puts on is the servant's towel. Every house had a servant's towel with the wash basin.
Yes.
And that's the towel that he puts on.
So how beautiful were Judah's feet when he stood up. And he was the first brother that represented the strife, the toil, the struggle, the fight. He's the first brother to step outside of time and show the beautiful feet, the good news that I'll be the sacrifice. Jesus says, I'll be the sacrifice. And here's our turn. What then is your offense? What could possibly be worth holding on to the offense if you can make this kingdom come through your own life by showing your brother that his feet are not too dirty for you to bow down to and be connected to the Lamb of God, the living Lamb that Abel brought, the Lamb of God in Christ. He said, if you want to do these things, if you want to be joined to me, you're going to be joined by what this towel is joined to, and that's servitude. That is humility. That is the meek inheriting the earth. Because we got swords, and we know that. We've killed many with this sword. Many have died with this sword. Many have died with the Word of God. But Christ ties that towel to himself, washes the feet of his disciples, and now that's how they're coming across the mountain and they're bringing good news. That's why. And here's my question. We partake of the sacraments. We do communion. We do all this stuff. He literally said, if I've washed your feet, you should do this one for another. So I don't want to hear this, oh, well, that's just one of them we're not going to do. I want to do it. I want to do it.
What's funny is, so I don't really know why I wanted to do it, but I read the story with the girls last night. So we read their Bible. They got their own special Bibles for Christmas. And so we read that story last night. And I just never paid attention to this certain part. I don't know why. But it gets to the point where Peter, because eventually I'll tell you this part first. I told the girls about how when I was a kid, and we did the foot washing services in church, and we had a basement, and we had the sanctuary up top, and it was carpeted in the middle, but the aisles were hardwood, so you could hear the ladies upstairs. The ladies were upstairs, and you could hear them just getting with it with God. Like they were speaking in tongues. My mom's up there. My mom gets loud in the Holy Ghost. I mean, she'll let out that whoo, that war cry, and you could hear them. And we're downstairs, and I thought, like, I just remember being, I don't know, maybe why they were so just in tune with the Holy Ghost and speaking in tongues while they're doing this. I didn't get it up there, and then you kind of join into what they're doing, and you feel it. You can't help but feel what's happening. And I told them that story, but then we're reading through the story in John 13, and when Peter says, "Well, why are you doing this?" and Jesus says, "You're not going to understand it now. Quit trying to understand it. Quit trying to put a definition on it." And for one, I think that's something that we all need to do. We've got such a penchant to try and have an answer to everything. You have to explain God or what God is doing. And sometimes he says, you're not going to understand this now. Just wait. Just wait on it. And then so Peter says, well, don't just wash my feet. Wash my hands and my head. But then Jesus makes something clear to him that I never caught before. He says, I don't have to wash your hands. I don't have to wash your head because you're already clean. I'm not washing you to make you clean. I'm washing your feet so that you'll be part of me. Because when I serve you, you're part of me, and I'm a part of you. I'm not washing your feet to make you clean. I'm washing to prove that I'm a part of your suffering. Everywhere you walk, I walk with you. Everywhere you go, I go with you. Now your feet are my feet. Your suffering is my suffering. Your problems are my problems. You're not walking through any of this alone. And what I think is so much more beautiful even, from Isaiah 52, it says, blessed are the feet of him. And you get to Romans 10, he says, blessed are the feet of them. Him becomes them. We are the them. And now our feet are washed by our brother, by our older brother, who's gotten down on his knees and made us part of him. The washing is not what made us clean. The washing is what made us a part of him and him a part of us, so that the suffering of your life, you're not going through it alone. And on the other aspect of this, to bring this back to what Josh said earlier, man, that was so good. We walk by faith and we don't walk by sight. If we could walk by sight, then you have exactly what Michael said and what Josh said. You can pick your favorites. You can pick the people that you want to love. You can pick the people that you want to agree with, and that's who I'm going to join myself to. And I'm going to bring myself to people that are just like me, who act like me and worship like me and behave like me and all of that stuff. But if you're walking by faith, and the opposite of faith is something I've said this a long time because I've really believed it. He says we walk by faith and not by sight. So I think the opposite of faith is sight. I walk by my understanding. Again, like Peter, trying to explain. Give me an explanation for this, Jesus. I got to be able to, I'm the oldest one here, and I've got to be the man, and I got to explain this to everybody, because these young, little John over there, he doesn't get it, and James and the brother of Zebedee, they don't get it. I need to understand it because I'm the old guy here. He's like, Peter, you, as old as you are, as intelligent as you are, and it's, thank you for being the oldest one in the room. Even you're not going to understand this. You're not going to understand this until way later. But it's making me part of you and you a part of me. When we walk by our understanding and we walk by sight, then we're able to have our prejudices. We're able to have our biases. We're able to say, I don't want to be a part of that crowd, and that crowd's not a part of us. But when we walk by faith, we can't screw things up. You cross your hands, and nobody can explain that.
Everybody's feet get washed. Judas, he washed Judas's feet. And it says it troubled him. He was extremely troubled because he washed his feet knowing good and well what was going to happen. So you're going to have to wash feet of people that you know are good and well are going to go and stab you in the back.
And you're going to have to explain now how he says, I'm washing your feet to make you a part of me. Now you're going to have to explain Judas out of the part of me. Now you've got to try and find a way to explain him out of God. And you can't, because in the end, even at the point of the deception when he betrays Jesus with a kiss, Jesus looks at him and calls him a friend. Looks at him and calls him a friend.
And we've talked about this, if he's constantly talking about leaving the 99 to go find the one, Judas was the one. He would have been the one that he would have left the 99 to go find. Out of the living, out of the realm of time, out of everything, to go find the one. I don't know, we're just musing on this.
Yeah. Are y'all good?
I'm fantastic.
I want you to feel that. I didn't mean to just let out a sigh like that, but I really can't help it. The emoji that is the happy crying eyes, I send that all the time now because that's just how I feel. And I want you to feel that embrace. And I want you to feel the love that has loved us first. The love that loved us first like dear children. That's how children know what love is. Because a mother and a father held them in their arms, looked in their eyes, and said, I'll love you forever, no matter what. So I love him because he first loved me. Thank you. God bless you.